Hi, MYP3. Today we're going to talk about algebraic fractions. This is chapter 4G in your book, and you can find it on page 87. I typed it out here, page 87 in your Snowflake Heath math book. So what is an algebraic fraction? Algebraic fractions are fractions which contain at least one variable. So either in the numerator or in the denominator or in both. So let's look at an example. And we deal with them just as we would with normal fractions. So you need to be really good at working with fractions. For that reason, I have put a Delta Math revision on fractions for you. So if you think that you might need a bit of a revision for fractions, go there and do that. But let's look at an algebraic fraction now. So for example, let's say we have 3a to the power of 3 over a to the power of 4. To work this out, we're first going to expand these expressions. So 3a to the power of 3 is the same as 3 times a times a times a over a to the power of 4 is a times a times a times a. And now we can simplify. I want to just point out, please be aware that we only have multiplications here in the numerator and in the denominator. This is really important. We can never simplify if we have a plus or a minus that is not in a way enclosed in a bracket, just a plus and a minus by itself in the numerator or the denominator. So that's super important to notice here. So when we simplify that, we can simply cancel. This a cancels with this a. This a cancels with this a. And this a cancels with this a. So what are we left with in the numerator? In the numerator, we are left with a 3. And in the denominator, we're left with an a. So all we have here is 3a. That's our simplified fraction. So we're simplifying. Let's look at a different example. Let's say we have 3x to the power of 2, y to the power of 3 over 15x and y to the power of 4. Let's simplify that. So before we simplify, we're going to expand so that canceling is easier. So in the numerator, we have 3 times x gives us x squared. Y times y gives us y to the third. Underneath, in the denominator, we have 15 times x and y times y times y times y gives us y to the power of 4. And now we're going to simplify. Usually we start with the numbers. That's what we're used to. So we can easily simplify those numbers. Common factor of 3 and 15 is 3. 3 divided by 3 gives us 1. 15 divided by 3 gives us 5. Now let's cancel our variables. We have an x here, we have an x here. Now we don't have any more x's in our denominator, so we can't cancel any further x's. So let's look at our y's. We have here one y and another y that we can cancel and another y that we can cancel. Now in our numerator we don't have any y's anymore, so we can't cancel that last y. So now it comes to writing down what we're left with. in our numerator, we're left with 1x, 1 and the x. In our denominator, we're left with this 5 and a y. And now I would say that actually we are done. However, in chapter A, we found out that when we have 1x, we don't write out 1x, but we simply write down x. So this is x over 5y. And this is about multiplying and dividing algebraic fractions. So what does that mean? I'm going to give you the, let's call it general rule rather than formula. So if you have one fraction, let's say a over b, and you want to multiply that by another fraction, let's say c over d, you do that by multiplying the numerator, a times c, over multiplying the denominators. Let's look at an example. Let's say we have here example. Let's say we have x over 5 times y over 3. So, using the rule that we just learned, we need to multiply the numerator, x times y, and we need to multiply the denominators, 5 times 3. We know from chapter 4a that x times y is written as xy over 5 times 3 gives us 15. That's the solution to that question. Now let's look at how to divide algebraic fractions. So if you have a fraction that goes a over b, and this one is divided by c over d, that equals. And I'm going to give you a recap of how did you divide fractions if it was numbers. So I'm just going to do that on the sides here. What about 2 over 3 divided by 4 over 6? Can you remember how you did that? This is the same as 2 over 3 times the reciprocal of 4 over 6. Reciprocal means that we need to swap the numerator and the denominator. So that would be 6 over 4. And now we can do just as we did before. 2 times 6 over 3 times 4. And we can simplify that, but I'm not going to go there. You can do that on your own accord if you want to. I am instead going to write down the general rule for dividing algebraic fractions. So a over b divided by c over d is the same as a over b times the reciprocal. Reciprocal d over c. Reciprocal means that we're swapping the numerator for the denominator, which is AD over BC. So let's try this with an example. Let's say we have example. Let's say we have x over 5 divided by y over 15. Now, the x over 5 stays the same, but I'm going to multiply it by the reciprocal, meaning I am swapping numerator and denominator. So that would be 15 over y. Now we can use our first rule. So x times 15 is 15x over 5 times y is 5y. And you can now use what we just learned in the previous slide to simplify this fraction. 15 and 5, they have a common factor, which is 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So what are we left here on the top? We have 3x. And the denominator we have 1y, which is the same as y. And that's how you divide and multiply algebraic fractions